Hola familia, and welcome to the on-demand session of creating an effective and sustainable budget. My name is Juan Lucero. I am the current vice president for this new academic year at Wichita State University. I am a junior studying mechanical engineering. I am accompanied by our former SHEP president, Diego Vargas, and our current president, Alex Escobedo. We will start by learning how to develop a budget. When developing a budget, there are some steps along with some questions that you should be considering when planning your budget. Starting with financial foundation. SHEP's mission is to change lives by empowering the Hispanic community to realize its fullest potential and to impact the world through STEM awareness, access, support, and development. With that being said, how does your budget align with your mission and strategic plan? Identify objectives. What are your chapter priorities? In our case, that is membership growth, retention, and conferences that include nationals and regionals. Some goals to consider when developing a budget is being organized and having successful programs. For example, your outreach events, social events, or any other professional events. Along with being organized, having a calendar with timeframes and deadlines is very helpful. The development of a good budget will lay the foundation for an effective and efficient academic year. Remember, we're all students. We all have a personal life with school. So being clear and concise and simple when developing and creating a budget is very important. Now let's get into creating a budget. When creating a budget, needs will kind of go back to prioritizing your objectives, like mentioned in the previous slide. Reviewing last year's budget, how does it compare to the actual amounts? Comparing budgets to actuals will help your chapter stay adaptable, help in making informed decisions, and maintain financial health. Review income and expenses, what income sources are available, and how much will our programs reaching goals cost. Staying on top of these specific sections is very important. Without these, the ship sinks. One thing our chapter does to stay on top of this is having weekly executive meetings where our treasurer breaks down all of our numbers and our entire exec team is aware of what is going on. Bottom line, does income cover expenses? You don't want to spend more money than you have, so being financially aware is a must. Budget implementation. Keep your advisor in the loop and have constant communication with them. That's what they're there for. They're there to guide you and help you, and they should be a big part in creating your budget. Now for the second part of creating a budget, there is some key terms that we will get into before we show you your or our sample budget. So starting with General Ledger Code or a GL code, it is a unique identification code that allows your chapter to classify and track their financial activity, followed by budget, represents the numbers your organization or chapter expects to hit. In other words, an estimate of your chapter expenses or revenue. Actuals represents the number that you actually achieved. And now we will get into our sample budget. So below is a sample budget that we created for last year's academic year. Every chapter's categories will vary. In our case, we have 4 sources of revenue. That is corporate sponsorships, office sponsorships. We actually have a student government association that helps fund each org on campus, and then obviously our others. As far as expenses, that includes our meeting costs, which would include your socials or your professional events, fundraising. For example, if we were to host a fruit cup sale, the expense associated would be fruits, cups, and silverware. And Dia de Ciencias, any outreach programs. And last but not least, one of the biggest expenses that we have every year and most of every chapter would have is conference expenses, which include travel, accommodation, and registration. So this specific section will go more into detail and how to planning as far as your expenses and how you should manage your budget when preparing for a nationals and a regional conference. In the next slide, I will pass it to Alex, and he will go more into depth in our approach to handling these conferences.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Escobedo. I am the current SHIP president at Wichita State University. I will be entering my senior year this upcoming academic year, and I'm a data analyst student. So let's talk a little briefly about our approach to SHIP conference. It all comes to striking the right balance. When you are creating your budget, you will soon learn that whether you want to focus on quantity or quality. If we want to focus on quantity, then you will prioritize taking a large number of students to conferences in order to maximize your chapter's exposure and inclusivity. You will also emphasize broad representations from different backgrounds and academic levels to foster a diverse environment at SHIP Nationals. When you focus on quality, you will also focus on selecting a smaller, more selected group of students for national conferences to make sure that you provide them with individualized attention from your executive team, from your advisors, and most importantly, from the companies that will be present. You will also prioritize students who demonstrate exceptional skills and interest at the conference team or at any relevant field of study. That being said, if you do want to focus on quantity, then with great power comes great responsibility, and you will, if not managed properly, you will feel under constant stress. So that's why when you focus on quantity, you have to make sure that you have a good team following your footsteps and backing you up, so that way everything falls under order. Now I will pass it on to our former SHIP president.
Hello, Chef Familia. My name is Diego Vargas Ruiz. I was the former president of the SHIP Wichita State chapter. But before that, I was a vice president. So now, after Alex was talking about how you select how many people you're going to take, I'm here to prepare you guys on the expenses for any conference, whether it be nationals or regionals. So we will break it up into travel costs, accommodations, and conference fees. So travel costs, that's probably one of your biggest expenses. If not, hotel might beat it out. But for travel costs, you have to take into account, are you guys taking a airfare, bus, car rentals, or are you guys taking a train if that's an option for your location, depending on how far LA is. Accommodation is an Airbnb or hotel cheaper. And that depends on kind of the group size you're taking. If it's a smaller, I recommend a hotel, but you're taking a larger group, I recommend an Airbnb. So they will, on the next slide, we'll be showing how much it costs per night expected. The conference fees, that's a really big expense as well. So make sure you guys get the early bird rate and make sure you guys do group discounts to save you guys some costs. And yeah, then on the future slides, we'll be showing you how our chapter did the calculation for nationals. But I want to keep in mind that every school is different, but this is a general approach that will work for us. So yeah, moving on to the next slide. What you guys have in front of you is the information for nationals this year. So registration cost is going to be $200 this year for the early bird. It's $50 cheaper than last year. Then you guys can see the increments of how much it changes over time. So make sure you guys really do get your early bird registration. If you're a professional, that's the same for you, $350. Then you can see the increments of how it increases. Something to know as well is that what Nationals is doing, if you guys book housing or registration early, you will have to pay that flat fee. So they say, making up an example, Wichita State buys 20 person package, it will just cost $200 and until the due date is for the payment. So just keep that in mind. So just to reiterate, so if you file for a bulk registration for housing or the students, you could just you'll pay that fee. Like let's say you pay in October, but you like filed for the bulk registration in September, you guys will still pay that $200 fee. Yeah. So moving on, Nationals Convention hotel rates are going to be $179 to $289 per night at a hotel. That's the expected range from nationals. Then I want to keep in mind that this all is without taxes, so make sure you guys do leave some room for taxes. We'll get into a little bit more detail on the next slides. But the airports listed from top to bottom are the closest hotels to Anaheim. I would recommend to look into if you're going to a regional airport to another regional airport, it is a little bit more expensive. If you're going from a regional, like if we're going to Wichita to LAX, it'll be cheaper than going to Wichita to Orange County. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Feel free to write these numbers down, or it's also going to be available for you guys. The slides will also be available for you guys. So moving on to the next slide. So one of the first steps I took during the summer to really make sure I took a little bit of stress off myself is making these scenarios up. So best case scenarios and worst case scenarios. So what that really means is that I know coming into my senior year, I was going to be really stressed out with classes. So in the summer, I did a lot of the prep work. So the best case scenarios, like for starting with the hotel, we got the chef package for the best hotel to take, I think 30, 35 people. Then making sure we know what kind of how much. So I guess in our school, we had to reserve a card. So make sure we time that out. The timing of all the small details is really big, like making sure we reserve the card and make these payments. When to send out sponsorship package. So we'll talk a little bit later on. And yeah, then travel. If we have the best case scenarios, like we're going to have the best travel, like with airfare, have gas money, and admissions, they'll just be covered by one of our sponsors. So making sure everything, the best case scenario is honestly the least stressful. So that is kind of how much how to oversee this in a way. How we got to the number is we would just look up a hotel and like they kind of set a benchmark of how much people we're gonna want to take and kind of calculate how much people are in a hotel room, how much is going to cost us per room at the convention, how many rooms do we want. But we'll talk a little bit about that in the upcoming slides. Moving on to the next slide, it's just the worst case scenario, which is kind of just repeating itself, but just showing how it will change our strategy, our approach to nationals. Like if it's our worst case and we don't get as much funding as we expected to have, now we have to start a priority list. So we can kind of, that priority list is just who is more worthy to go to nationals, who's done more for the chef chat there, which is a state, stuff like that. Hotel, now we could look at more of the cheaper option, a hotel, and now consider Airbnb. For travel, now kind of start thinking about trains, start thinking about more driving to the location. So kind of start approaching that, then kind of bring some numbers in, and I'll be kind of onto the next slide with our nationals calculator. So this is a calculator we use for nationals. So start on your top left. We have our national budget. So this is how much funding we're gonna have for our national budget with all our income, all your sponsors. To your right of that in the blue, and I'll have my total sponsors. Then what you see in yellow is the cost, like something we're gonna have to pay with the hotel. So we put per night, per night, the cost and how many rooms and how many nights, right? So you get your total cost. And I just kind of did an Excel formulas through all of this. So like once we pay for how we prioritize exec, then the leftover money will be down to our general members. So once we pay for exec, we have leftover money, then that's going to be paid for the execs admissions, then also non-exec admissions. Then what money is left over that's how we kind of take into account how much gas money we have for members and how much money we're going to spend for admissions and flight. So yeah, so and then your top right, we have the cost per person if they're flying. So if we could cover it, if we can't cover it, it's within the budget to cover admissions, how much the flight is currently. And yeah, then after however you want to run your calculations, I recommend starting a Excel sheet from scratch. Just because when you start making your own formulas, you're really going to understand how it trickles down to each number. So allocated gas money, that's the money we have after all, taking all 28. This is just an example. This isn't the real numbers. But this kind of see how much money could be allocated for what. And yeah, so some advice is during the summer, I'll make some type of system that you could iterate over the the beginning months right before nationals. For example, if you know that sponsors coming in later on that you didn't expect, you could just plug in another sponsor, right? And you could easily, the numbers will just trickle down how much money you have left over, how much money you can allocate for something else. And yeah, so I think good advantage is you guys kind of know where the price range for a hotel is now, so you could kind of start calculating that. How much, if you want to go to cheaper or more expensive, then you kind of start creating like strategies for the best case scenario, worst case scenario. Yeah, so that's a piece of advice. And if you're a senior or a junior, we're taking really challenging classes. I think this saves you a lot of more stress and time during the semester. So you don't have to spend as much time on this, but it would just be more of plugging in numbers in to see how much you do guys are, how each chapter is able to, how many members each chapter is able to take. So I just recommend to make a tool for yourself so you can kind of push out numbers way quicker than doing it by hand. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Alex for driving chapter excellence.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about what it means to drive your chapter to excellence. So in front of you is a framework, a strategic framework that we have provided you guys, so you can take notes and see how we take our chapter to success. And we have broken it down into 3 sections, starting in the top left with fundraising events. So when you organize fundraising events, you're gonna have to consider the purpose of the event and the benefit that you will gain from it. And the purpose should be driven by diversity revenue sources to strengthen your financial stability. You always want to have your chapter on a good stance when it comes to financial budgets, and this is a good initiative that you can take. You also have to focus on your benefits. So when you run fundraising events, the benefit of doing so will be you're going to be able to sustain your support for chapter activities and growth. Now let's talk a little bit about outreach programs. The purpose of outreach programs should be for you to build strong relations with the community. You want to have your chapter's name out there being spoken on. The benefit from that would be you will be able to foster support from collaborations and positive public perceptions from outside sources, whether that be companies, recruiters, you name it. Now let's finish it off with membership retention strategies. So the purpose of this will be for you to ensure member continuity and knowledge retention. And the benefit from it will be you're going to be able to enhance sustained engagement within your chapter initiatives. So given those 3 subjects, those 3 topics that I have mentioned, we went ahead and provided you guys with some ideas. So let's say you want to focus mainly on doing events, then fundraising events, then you can either focus into small scale or into large scale. And we can trickle that down into small scale by saying you want to do concha sales, fruit cup sales, or aguas frescas. Anything of this nature would be considered small scale. Large scale would be considered when you do traditional food plates, that whether that be tacos, quesadillas, tortas, or when you also do profit shares. So in the past, what we have done is we've reached out to local restaurants, in this case Chipotle, and we asked them to do profit shares with us. Maybe start looking into that, if your chapter will be interested in doing such thing. And another big one for us that we recently got the word on and we took the initiative on was doing university concession stands, whether that be basketball games, track events, or baseball events. We get reached upon to do concession stands, and we gain a lot of revenue from doing so. So if you're interested in doing this, I recommend you talk with your athletic department and see what options you guys have available. So for community outreach events, and some ideas would be you do STEM workshops, you do local partnerships, or you do volunteer services. And all of these align with SHIP's missions. So in each case, you will be fulfilling SHIP's mission in that. And membership retention strategies, this can be either considered internal programming or external programming. When you do mentorship programs, then you provide guidance and support to help members achieve their personal and professional goals. When you do exclusive member events, then you will offer a unique networking opportunity and professional development opportunities to your members. You can also do recognition award ceremonies, as we did this past semester. we hosted a ceremony, our ship gala, where we were able to recognize our students, our executive team for all the hard work that they put into throughout the academic year. Another big one that I would like to mention to you guys is sponsorship packets. If your chapter is not doing one already, I recommend you guys to take the initiative on doing sponsorship packets. And in front of you is a blueprint of how we constructed ours. In your sponsorship packet, the main purpose is for you to use it as the main tool for you to get external funding from outside corporations, outside recruiters, anything of that nature. And what goes into a sponsorship packet, you may ask? Well, that's up to you. However you want to design your sponsorship packet. You can provide a brief history of Ship Nationals. You can provide a brief history about your chapter, who was your first president, your advisor, current advisor, anything of that nature. And you also want to mention why you need the money and why you will use the money for. Obviously, most of the funding that you guys receive will most likely go to Ship Nationals or any ship conference at the national level. So you want to provide your whoever is going to sponsor you with opportunities. In that case, you want to provide them with different levels. So let's say they want to do logos they want to showcase their logos on your platforms, on your social medias, then provide them with that opportunity. If they want to host any workshops in your chapter, they want to have a person come to your chapter in this case and provide workshops or just an opportunity to recruit, you can provide them for that as well. Or if they want to have everything that you guys want to include, provide that as well. It's just up to your creativity. You get creative with it, provide them with enough opportunities, and it goes a long way. Sponsorship packets do work at the end of the day. Now I'll pass it on to our former ship president.
Hello, everyone. Just to continue, I would just like to discuss a little bit about the common mistakes and how to avoid them. We have here listed a couple of mistakes and kind of solutions and approach you could take to solve them. Starting with communication, you have to have really good communication. As the better communication, the better results you'll get with your treasurer, with all your sponsors, with and like communication with the small details is a big thing. So really making sure every little detail is being picked up is really, really important. And yeah, I think a possible solution for that is just having different communication channels. So if someone's better to email or text, just make sure that they just figure out the best way to communicate. And this also kind of works with also if you're talking to a sponsor, and a better way to communicate them is through a phone number or an email. I would definitely recommend just figure that out. So, because I feel like it was just really stressful trying to hear back from, like let's say a sponsor, and the time is really important. You need a quick answer. So I just recommend figuring out which is the best active way to communicate with them. Yeah, and I think it's really important to create a budget with all the records and maintaining it live. For example, like something like the national calculator did was really make sure all our expenses was like every number is being tracked, where expenses are going where, how much is being used on hotels, how much is being used for airfare, how much is being used for admissions. So it's maintaining a live budget for all the records, yeah, and a good solution is kind of like having some type of calculator system. Really make sure you know when money is coming in. So like, let's say, for example, a sponsor is going to sponsor 5,000, right? Making sure you know when that money is going to come in, before what deadlines. Let's say you try to pay admissions with that sponsor. Really make sure you know when that money is coming into the account to be able to pay that. Because it's one thing getting the money, but it's also another getting it to the account, So really make sure your timing is really good. And yeah, and that's just airs with university processes. So really make sure how you understand how your university works. You could probably start that now in the summer, communicating with the individual you're going to talk to around the time. Like start getting all the big hurdles out the way. Like how can we make this purchase? How can we just send you the invoice to make sure it's covered, etc. Kind of those type of questions. That's a good way to start. Building a connection with your university. to be able to kind of get the big hurdles out the way now. So you could just, let's say, university could just take an invoice and they could they could take care of it. So just learn all those small details. And a huge thing is keeping receipts. I always recommend to keep every receipt that's made over the whole process of the academic year, not just the convention or the regionals. So just make sure that you know how every dollar is being spent. So you have like an overall budget. Like let's say your school got a certain amount of money, and you start subtracting it, but make sure you document everything. Some that's like the major mistakes and how to avoid them. And yeah, I think the biggest tip is just making sure you have something live. You don't miss any little detail of where every dollar is going to. And everybody's going to be different. So any system that works for you, I highly recommend. But I would highly, highly suggest you start in the summer. Now, pass it back to Alex to talk about our personal success story at Wichita State.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up, and let's talk a little bit about our WSU Shep personal success story. So we provided you guys with membership retention ideas, with fundraising events, and we gave you a blueprint as to how to construct a sponsorship packet. So when you manage to implement all of these ideas and put them together in a coherent manner, then your chapter will be successful as ours was. And I want to briefly talk about a little bit about our chapter and what we did this past academic year. So our chapter experienced a 200% growth from the 2022 to 2023 year to 2023 to 2024, which was this last academic year. A 200% growth was observed on our campus in the chapter. With that just goes to show that all the hard work we did came in, and we were able to do so. Half of our paid members were able to attend SHIP Nationals. We were able to provide half of our members with the opportunity to experience what SHIP Nationals is and give them the opportunity to potentially come up with full-time or internship offers. Out of the half of the members that attended SHIP Nationals, half of them attended Nationals and received internships or full-time offers. All of the sophomores and juniors and seniors, which we took, were able to receive interviews at least. Which that just goes to show the executive team put in the work necessary, and we provided the tools and equipment for our members to be successful. But apart from chapter success, we also did receive a lot of individual membership recognition. At the 2023 President Summit, our former president from 2 academic years ago received the award for Lift As You Climb. Live As You Climb Award, and this was recognized at the 2023 President Summit. Our former SHIP treasurer won the Most Supported Participant Award at the 2023 President Summit as well. And just recently, our former president, Diego Vargas, received the Registered Student Organization President of the Year at Wichita State University. And above all, we received the Region 3 Chapter of the Year. And that just goes to show that when you implement all of these ideas and you manage to implement them in a coherent manner, your chapter will experience success. So hopefully you guys were able to benefit from how our chapter runs this, how we are able to come up with these ideas, and hopefully you can implement them on your chapter or take bits and pieces that you find useful. That being said, we want to thank you guys for joining us today. We will see you guys at the live session of CCOP, where we're going to answer all of your questions, and we will gladly hear any comments you guys may have. Thank you.